we've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Buckeye Breakdown on this Friday of Labor Day weekend. Finally, it's Football Friday and college football. We had awesome games last night to keep us entertained, maybe whet our appetite just a little bit before the Buckeyes get rolling this weekend. Ohio State and Notre Dame, this game we've been talking about for a really, really long time. And to be honest with you, Craig, I'm pretty sick and tired of talking about it. That's Craig Hyson. I'm Brendan Gulick. And it's time to actually go put your hand in the dirt and prove what you've been working on and put your money where your mouth is, as both of these teams have pretty darn high aspirations here as we get ready for the 2022 season.
Sure thing. I'm tired of talking about it too, Brendan. Those games last night were incredibly entertaining. Penn State, Purdue, down to the wire. West Virginia and Pitt was an incredible game. Two narrow catches that could have changed the outcomes of those games. So hopefully that's a precursor of what's to come this Saturday, because it's a big slate and it's exciting to finally start playing. People have been looking forward to this as soon as the Rose Bowl was over. So it's awesome that it's finally here.
And we even had one instance of, oh my God, college football is all the way back because the South Carolina State punter ran 11 yards past the line of scrimmage.
I felt bad for that kid.
Like, there are rules, man. You can't do that.
As soon as it hit his foot, I think he realized what he did. He's like, oh, my God, that's going bad.
Oh, man. I felt so bad for him. But at the same time, like the look of shame of just head down, shoulders slouched forward. His coach is trying to pick him up. Oh, man.
That was a classic.
Like, I wonder when you kick that, do you think to yourself instantly like, man, that's going to go viral? Like, I'm going to be the butt of the joke.
You got to. I think
you haven't seen it, folks. You got to check it out. It's an easy pick for early highlight of the year for sure. Mm-hmm. All right. By the way, this is a live show. We're going to try to do shows live as often as we can. I know this week most of the shows have been recorded, but we're going to try to be live as often as we can every morning during the week. So we'd love for you to interact with us, please. This is live on YouTube, and once in a while we'll stream it live on Facebook and Twitter as well. But our YouTube channel is the easiest way to interact with us. It's BuckeyesNow on SI. On our social channels, BuckeyesNow.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can be part of this conversation. Happy to take some questions along the way if you have them, so we can all kind of group think this Ohio State Notre Dame game. We're not going to ramble on forever, though. We don't want this to be the kind of show where you feel like you got to sit here for an hour. I think the most important thing to note up front here is that I don't believe, Craig, that we're going to be surprised. From my perspective, I don't think we're going to be surprised by the way Ohio State tries to show its toughness. They've been told all offseason how soft they were. They've heard it. They heard it from Michigan. They heard it from fans. They heard it from people all around college football. Man, that offense is really good, but when it came time to, try to stop somebody, the defense was a little too soft. I think Ohio State is going to make an extra emphasis this weekend, even in places maybe where the game doesn't dictate it, just to try to prove a point that, hey, we're a much tougher team this year. And by the way, we can do this against the top 5 teams. So, college football, look out.
Anytime a player, when you ask them how the offseason goes, especially in the weight room, and they laugh when they first start to give you an answer, that's when you know it was brutal on them. And they're going to be ready to take that out on an opponent and take that aggression out. And because I'm sure they got their butt kicked in the weight room all offseason and reminded of that. And the score of Michigan, I've seen it hanging in the weight room. So they've been reminded of how soft they are all offseason. So they're going to take that out on Notre Dame tomorrow. And we're going to get to see what that defense is going to look like. And it's just exciting that it's finally here, the 100th year in the shoe to open up with Notre Dame. It's just really cool and going to be able to soak that all in tomorrow. It's just really, really awesome.
Sue and David, thanks for your comments early on. David, we'll get to your question in just a second. I think there's a lot of eyeballs around different pockets of this game. People want to see what the defense looks like, obviously. I think there's more intrigue on the defensive line for fans because they want to figure out if we can, see an Ohio State team that stops the run. Look, at every level of the defense has its, I guess you could say, question marks. They're not glaring questions. They're not major concerns. They're just, okay, what's defensive tackle look like? Okay, Tommy Eichenberg, Steel Chambers, those are the two guys at linebacker. How much better are they going to be in 2022 after all the experience they built up last year, where by the end of the season, they both played well? In the secondary, you've got a five-man secondary. Tanner McAllister's the new face in town, but he's obviously familiar with Jim Knowles' scheme. How healthy is that other corner spot? Ryan Day kind of indicated yesterday that, the Buckeyes are full go. I think that's probably a little bit more of a reflection of maybe the too deep that they won't share with us, by the way, than it is maybe the whole roster, right? I mean, we know Evan Pryor's hurt. We know Mitchell Melton's hurt. There's a couple guys a little banged up that aren't going to play. Cam Babb obviously is not going to play tomorrow. But the concept that this team is largely pretty healthy and ready to go, I think, is encouraging. But still, how well can Cam Brown play opposite Denzel Burke? Because if he does, could be a really, really tough day on a group of Notre Dame receivers that maybe isn't great. They're okay, but they're not great. So there's going to be a lot of people watching the defense, particularly, Craig. I'm interested more in the defensive line. I think they need to show substantial improvement up front, and I think that's where I'm going to spend, a good chunk of my time and attention when they're on defense is watching that line.
I'm right there with them. That's the same thing I'm going to be watching. I want to see how they rotate guys and see who truly that starter is on a key third down that they got to get off the field. Is it going to be Zach Harrison out there? Is it going to be a JTT? Is it going to be Jack Sawyer? Like, who's going to be in that position? Who's going to be the rover position? So all those things excited to see. And I'm glad it's an opponent like Notre Dame. So we might not see all the tricks that Jim Knowles has, and we definitely won't see them all tomorrow. But a more apt opponent, we're going to see what the Buckeyes are really going to look like on defense rather than starting out with, a bye game, the first game. So to see what they have tomorrow is what we're all waiting to see. I mean, it's like you hear about that Christmas present you're getting, that new shiny toy, and you know it's under the tree, but you haven't seen it yet. That's what it feels like. So
how did you know it's under the tree? Did you
right.
Oh man, I did that once. God, I was so ashamed of that. I did that one time, and
it ruins the surprise.
Dude, I was 10 years old. It was 2 decades ago. I'm 31, and I still remember doing that, and I totally shouldn't have done it.
I want to get to Dave. I'll let you take David's question there.
Yeah, let's do that. So David says, good morning. I know this is the first game, but how much of an indicator will this game be, in your opinion, when it comes to how well our offense and defensive lines play? And actually, Steven just popped in here with a comment saying still comes down to both lines of scrimmage. Do we have any dog in us this year? So both those kinds of questions are around the line. And the reality is, I totally agree with Steven here. It does come down to the line of scrimmage. And yes, David, I think this game is hugely indicative of who can make plays there at the point of attack. I mean, I don't mean this disrespectfully to a Notre Dame secondary that I think is okay. They've obviously got 2 really, really good players and 2 guys that I think could be okay. Brandon Joseph, obviously we know from from his time at Northwestern, he's an All-American and he's very, very good. Mm-hmm. I don't know, because Ohio State's receiver group is so deep. I mean, Joseph can't be everywhere, right? I mean, I just don't. I don't want to be like way over the top and say Notre Dame can't cover the Buckeyes. I just think they're going to have a tough time. But as I said on yesterday's show, to maybe help them a bit, I just get the impression Ohio State wants to run the ball. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe CJ is going to throw for 350 and, Trevion Henderson ran for 100 yards and that's that. It's my impression that the Buckeyes are going to try to really pound the football. I'd be stunned if Trevion Henderson doesn't take the snap and run, whichever direction. on the first play from scrimmage for Ohio State. I would be floored. I think Ohio State really wants to prove a point that they can run the ball against, frankly, the strength of Notre Dame's defense is their defensive line. So I think it might actually help Notre Dame's secondary that the Buckeyes might almost be a little stubborn and run it, unless it's just not working for whatever reason. And then you know what you can do in the passing game. That's kind of where my head's at around that point of attack there.
To Steven's question, too, about do the Buckeyes have any dog in them? Obviously, we're going to find out tomorrow, but I saw a clip going viral this week on TikTok of all places of Ohio State in 2014. I can't remember what player it was, but he was really lighting up the locker room at halftime and challenging them. It's hard to tell what game that was from, but not being in the locker room last year, just looking from the outside, it doesn't seem like we had any guys that challenged anybody like that in the locker room. And that's easy to say because they couldn't really stop anybody on defense, but we never really heard those stories out of last season. So one of the things that Zach Smith, it was on his TikTok account that he posted, was that's what's going to come down for Ohio State this year. They're going to be heavily favored in every game, but do they have the leaders that 2014 team had to carry these guys when they might not be living up to their own expectations, like really challenging them in the locker room? So probably didn't have it last year. Hopefully we have it this year. But that's key. But comment here, Curtis Grant, that was it. That was the player. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So you saw the same video I saw.
Love that. Sue jumps in here and asks probably the most pressing question that Ohio State needs to answer when they're out there on defense. Who are we putting on Mayer? That's Michael Mayer, Notre Dame's tight end. Will it be successful? I'm hearing they think we have no linebackers that can cover him. I don't know if Sue has insiders in the Notre Dame program or not. Look, I think Michael Mayer is a legit first-round talent, and I expect him to be a big part of Tyler Buchner's game plan because you're making your first career start. You kind of know what your best bullets are, so figure out a way to use them and use them when it's most appropriate. I think Ohio State's trying to be pretty tight-lipped on how they're going to actually go about covering him. My expectation, Sue, is that it's going to be more than one or two guys. I think they're going to throw different looks at him. I think it's going to be occasionally a linebacker and occasionally like a Ronnie Hickman or Tanner McAllister. I don't think you're ever going to see Josh Proctor with him, one-on-one, just the position Proctor plays. Tommy Eichenberg is kind of your downhill run stuffer at linebacker. He can move left and right fairly well. I think Steele Chambers is a bit more mobile than Eichenberg. Tommy is more Michael Mayer's size than Chambers is. But if the Buckeyes get in positions where maybe it's not, that extra safety that's locked in on where Mayer is, I get the impression maybe Steele Chambers could probably hang with him, and position yourself the right way. And Steele's a tough kid. He can make a tackle. He's not small. He's a little smaller than Tommy is, but he's not small by any stretch. But that is absolutely 110% the biggest question I think the Buckeyes need to address early in the game. How are they going to stop Notre Dame's best offensive option? And if they can take him out of the game or at least mostly neutralize him, how does that affect then Tyler Buchner, who, he's going to be looking for ways to get in a rhythm and feel like the game's not moving too fast. It's not like he's never played, right? We're not talking about a kid who's never thrown a pass in college football like the Buckeyes had to deal with that situation last year. It's just going to be a different environment. And when you're the guy, the spotlight shines a little brighter. So you got to figure it out. And I think if Ohio State can take away his best option, that's going to make for a tough night for him.
Brendan, one quick question on that. Who do you think matches up best? One guy, if you had to pick that key third down where they got to get off the field, who's going to be on Mayer?
Personally, I don't know if he's going to get on the field as often. I can't wait to see how often he plays. I'd put Chip Trainum on him.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly get the impression he is ready and in the mix at linebacker. His combination of size and speed is sort of my personal favorite matchup for Mayer. He's super physical. He absolutely can. And frankly, I think he can outrun Mayer. I just don't know how often they're going to do that because we haven't seen Jim Knowles use this group yet. But Knowles said to us last week that while Larry Johnson was in charge of rotating anywhere from 12 to 14 defensive linemen throughout the course of the game, he said he wasn't going to play nearly the depth in the back seven that we saw last year. Now, does that mean he's only going to play his starting 2 linebackers and then one more? He's going to play his starting, safeties and one, and starting corners and then one more? Or is he willing to go literally one deep at every spot? We just don't know yet. I know there's plenty of faith in Chip Trainum. I just don't know if that's a reality or not. I hope he gets on the field. I mean, I was lucky enough to see him play a lot of high school football because I was doing some broadcasts for Spectrum, and obviously he's an Akron kid. And I mean, he was a man amongst boys in high school, and you kind of knew, like, hey, this kid's the real deal. Let's watch him go when he goes to play college at Arizona State. The Buckeyes wanted him, and he decided he wanted to go out to, out to Tempe. That's fine. I think this is going to be a better fit for him. I think he's got an NFL future as a linebacker. I've always thought he was a better linebacker than a running back, but Ohio State in like super 911 emergencies has been repping him at running back. So we'll see what happens. But to specifically answer your question, if it's hey, it's 3rd and short, you got a pretty good chance of seeing Mayer get the football, I would love to see Trainum on the field covering him. Mm-hmm. Steven brings in another thing here about Tyleik Williams. I love that. I think Tyleik Williams could have a huge season. He was probably the guy that most impressed me last year of guys I wasn't really sure what to expect from. And if Tyleik Williams can have a big year, and certainly if he can play well against Notre Dame, I'm going to feel really, really good about the interior of the defensive line, because that's a group that, to me, there's all this flash about the defensive ends, and there should be. There's been a lot of good ends at Ohio State, and they got a lot of talent in that room right now. Man, if the defensive tackles can just be like big, mean dudes, Ty Hamilton, Jerron Cage, Tyleik Williams, figure out a way to just make it brutal for them to try to run between the tackles, because this is going to sound so bad, man. I don't need Jackson Smith and Jigba to be tougher. I don't need, I don't need CJ Stroud to be tougher. Travion Henderson probably needed to toughen up a little bit, because he talked about how his body by the end of the season was breaking down on him.
I think that was the turf, though, Brendan. Remember, he rolls his ankle.
It's true. No, when I think about the toughness check that Ohio State needed, for better or for worse, man, I immediately start thinking about the defensive front.
Yep. And Tyleik Williams is kind of that guy that nobody's really talking about either. Everybody's talking about our ends, our linebackers, how improved they are. Tyleik Williams doesn't get mentioned a whole lot, but I forget who asked that question. But yeah, Steven, he's going to be a huge key, and he might be one of the most important pieces of the defense to make it all run. So yeah, great question there. More so a statement, but there with you, Steven, on that one.
Yeah, and Emeka Egbuka is having a breakout season on offense. Steven brings that up too. It's hard for me to pick a guy on offense that I feel like could, quote unquote, have a breakout season, because they're all capable of it. If Emeka had a 1,000-yard season, would I be surprised? Absolutely not. I wouldn't be surprised if Marvin Harrison had a 1,000-yard season. I wouldn't be surprised if Jackson Smith and Jigba broke his record from last year at 1,606 yards. And that wasn't just a team record. That was a Big Ten record. I try really hard to not be flowery or over the top with analysis or expectations or things. On one hand, they're kids, right? They're super talented, and these guys are really, really fun to watch. But let's go see what happens. Yeah. See if I think balance, and not just balance between run and pass, but balance in the receiving core is best for CJ Stroud. I don't really want Jackson Smith and Jigba to have a 2,000-yard season. Like, that'd be fun. Let's talk about it. Let's write about it. But is that best for Ohio State?
I agree. It's not when one guy's going off like that. You're going to know it'll get too predictable where the ball's going. And there's too many weapons on this offense for that to happen. So and one thing too with breakout season, I mean, he's been around. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. But let's not forget, Julian Fleming was the top high school wide receiver recruit. He just hasn't been able to stay on the field. So if he can stay healthy, and that's a big if, because didn't he pop his shoulder back in a scrimmage like a month ago and scored two touchdowns?
And then scored 2 touchdowns
right after. So if he can stay healthy, he's a dude. I mean, you got to be a stud to be the top wide receiver recruit in the country. So let's not forget about him.
Yep. I like Howard's comment that he just popped in and mentioned Court Williams. Yeah, I want to see Court Williams. I want to see Cam Martinez. What role do they use him in? Is he playing defense? Is he returning punts? Like, is he returning kicks? You know, how do you get this guy the ball? Because all indications are that he's a really, really good player. Just haven't seen it yet. We're in the Scarlet and Gray quite as much. Josh Proctor coming off of a really tough season-ending injury. If Josh wants to play beyond college, he's got something he's got to go out and prove this year. He's got the size. He's got the speed to play at the next level. You know, could he have a quote-unquote breakout season? Yeah, he could. He's kind of the safety net, literally. I mean, I know that's his position, but, like, I need to see some really impressive play from Proctor before I'm, like, you know, banging the gavel on the table, being excited about him. And I think he knows that. I think he wants to go out and prove, like, look, I know I didn't have a chance to show my best stuff last year, but I'm healthy. I'm ready. Let's go.
Derek just asked, how many carries does Mayan get tomorrow? You kind of hit on that the other day. You want to take that one?
Yeah, it's my expectation that Ohio State is going to run the ball a little bit more than you probably would think, given CJ and the talent at wide receiver. I'm not saying that that's going to necessarily translate to yards, because it's hard to predict if a guy's going to rip off a 55-yard, reception or a 60-yard run. But I said the other day that I think if I were going to put a number on it by the end of the game, that CJ would be something in the ballpark of like 325 to 340 passing yards. And I think the combination of Travion and Mayan Williams are going to touch it 25 times or more. I think Travion is going to get slightly more than half the carries, but not by a landslide. I would be surprised if Mayan Williams doesn't touch it at least 8 to 10 times. I think Tony Alford and Ryan Day feel really, really good about the depth in that room. And it's, they're not going to take Travion off the field because they don't believe in him in a certain situation. It's just going to be about freshness and who the hot hand is. I think Travion and Mayan Williams are the best 1-2 running back combination in America. I think Ohio State would be silly not to use them both. So I expect Travion to get a few more carries than Mayan does, but I would be really, really surprised if Mayan Williams doesn't get 8 to 10 touches tomorrow. All right, let's touch on a couple other things. First of all, I'll let you take it. What's on your mind when you think about this game?
So not so much game related, but just happy the season's here. Happy it's a big time first game. 100th year in the shoe, the recruiting that's going to be there tomorrow, just everything. This is a massive, massive game. I know we've said it all week, but it is. I mean, if they have 9 5-star recruits visiting tomorrow. So, yeah, and I don't know
60 total.
Right. So, and some of those 5-star kids aren't committed yet. So does the outcome of this game decide whether they pick Ohio State or not? I probably wouldn't say that, but they're going to see a big-time atmosphere, and if they do win, I mean, Columbus is just going to be incredible tomorrow night after the game. So
yeah, and I was just going to say that's the thing. It's like I don't know that Ohio State has to win to convince those kids to come here. It sure would help, but when I think about if I'm a high school kid and I'm trying to decide where I want to play my college football, and I know I'm good enough to play for some of the elite teams in the country, I want to know about how is this place going to help me become the best player I can be. If I have aspirations to play in the NFL, how are they going to put me in positions where I could, chase those dreams? and what's the energy and the atmosphere in game day like? The passion for fans, the way the team embraces that. And I don't know that you're going to have too many better options to see what that looks like than you are when Ohio State is hosting a national brand like Notre Dame, who's only come to the shoe, a couple times in its history, once back in the 1930s and then once now 26 years ago or 25 years ago. This is a special situation. It doesn't come around a whole lot.
No.
So it's my expectation that the Buckeyes are going to do everything they can to try to really put on a show for the recruits. Jerry Emig told us the other day, hey, if you're going to be at the game, get in your seat by 7:00 because, they're going to have a flyover and paratroopers coming in. And, obviously the Script Ohio and the band and they want to make this as much a show as they can and then beg the crowd to get behind him as they try to go put it on Notre Dame. And that's part of the fun and the pageantry of college football.
Yeah, just a couple other things I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Two is I want to see the suits that everybody's going to be wearing to the game now that CJ Stroud gave everybody $500 express gift cards yesterday after practice. So how about that for
I wonder if that was shot a lot earlier in camp and then released yesterday.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that in a 36-hour stretch. I mean, can you imagine I don't know where
guys don't get ready for the game. Let's go to the Eastern Town Center Express.
100 guys who are not your average size guy that can fit into whatever suit. 100 guys walk into one Express and say, "Hey, we'd like to buy a suit for every one of us." I think that would be
God bless the employee that has to measure all the linemen all day to get that shoulder width for the suit jacket. That's going to be a long day.
Oh man, I love it. No, it's really cool to see Jay, and frankly, I certainly could have missed it, but I can't think off the top of my head of another instance where I've seen a college athlete of somebody of his stature basically do something like that for his team.
For the rest of his team.
I don't know what I don't know what the official number of suits that he's going to buy is. I know the scholarship number. I think there's 120 guys on the team if you include walk-ons. That's $60,000, $50,000. That's awfully generous of CJ. Now the reality is basically like an Express advertisement, exactly. And they would have either spent that money putting it on a commercial or a billboard, or they can say, "Hey, CJ, why don't you give this to your guys?" And maybe they get better run out of it. But it is a great look. CJ could have said, "No, I don't want to do something like that." I don't think he ever would, but it's a really nice gesture for sure.
Yep. Back to your original question, though. Excited to see the new turf. Tired of seeing the pinko out in the middle. That's going to look good.
Yep.
But I mean, if I had to pinpoint one thing, it's the defense. I mean, we know what we have on offense. Just seeing what that new look defense is going to look like. How about you? What's one thing you're looking forward to most tomorrow?
Man, this almost sounds silly. As much as I'm looking forward to the game and watching the X's and O's, the intricacies of the game, because that's what we want to talk about. There's something to me about the first game of the season that just hits you in a different way.
Oh, absolutely.
2 years ago when there was nobody in the shoe, that's still a little fresh for me. Mm-hmm. And we didn't play Michigan at home last year. We haven't played them at home in a couple years. I think about the crowd and the noise in the Oregon game, but the letdown because of what happened. So I guess I'm just looking forward most to the idea that everybody is paying attention to this game. Even the most college football casual fan in the country is at least going to have some pulse on, oh, wow, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Yeah, I'll flick that on for 5 minutes.
Do you think it's going to be the most watched regular season game of all time tomorrow night? Because right now, what is it, USC, Texas?
Yeah, I'll be really interested to see the numbers. I don't think it'll be the most watched of all time. I think it could be a top 10.
I think it's a lock to be top 10.
Yeah. I honestly, Craig, I think the Ohio State-Michigan game this year will be right there. Because I expect Michigan to be undefeated. If they're not undefeated coming into the shoe, then something ridiculous happened, because their schedule is so soft at the beginning of the year. And I think they're good enough to win all of their other Big Ten games. They should be undefeated coming into that final game of the regular season. I think the Buckeyes are going to be in the same position, and we might see another number 1 versus number 2, or at least a super highly rated game. I think that game will be more watched than this one. But hear the band, hear the crowd. It just the whole thing. It's emotional for people that love Ohio State football. It's emotional, and the fact that we haven't had this kind of an environment with these stakes, to me, that's what I want to just enjoy it. Like I want to sit there and be able to feel like I'm truly enjoying what I'm watching, because it's going to be an emotional day. It's going to tug at you. I hope it's a great night for the Buckeyes. I hope they win comfortably. We'll give our score prediction here and wrap up in just a moment, and I'll tell you that I think Ohio State is going to win by roughly the spread, but I'll give you my prediction in a second. Obviously, the 2002 national championship team, which is, the team that, just based on my age, I mean, I watched the Buckeyes before that, but that was the team that grabbed me. A lot of those guys are going to be there. Coach Tressel's going to be there. Like, there's just so much going on in Columbus, in the heart of campus, at the shoe. The tailgate scene. I want to walk around. I want to just feel it and be a part of it.
I'll let you know while you're busy working. I'll let you know how that scene is. I'll take care of that part tomorrow. We'll report back Monday on how fun that was all day. I think we're going to set up at 8. So, but
awesome.
Sage Ohio commented that the express suits to put a bow on that cost roughly $42,000. So must be nice to be a big time Division I quarterback right now in this era.
That sounds about right. It depends how many suits that. I mean, if he only did it for the scholarship guys, that would be a roughly a fairly accurate number. But I wouldn't.
Thank you for doing that math, Sage Ohio. I didn't want to do that math on a Friday morning.
Last thing, and then we get to the predictions. There's a couple of comments in here about this game is almost a playoff, to tell you the truth. There was a question in here about, hey, is there too much pressure on us to win? And I actually have been thinking about that, especially in the last 24 hours. I've been thinking about it from a different perspective, because I guess when you're so ingrained in covering the team and thinking about everything that relates to Ohio State and its goals, it almost just becomes second nature to say, well, the 3 goals are to beat Michigan, to win the Big Ten title, and to go win the college football national championship. And I think that's a really healthy mentality in theory. But I wonder how healthy it is for like the mentality of those kids. So I'm almost trying to pull back just a little bit to say, hey, as Buckeye fans, like, man, let's just enjoy the fact that there's a team here it's got the potential to be really, really special. And I hope that we're not being unfair by saying, even if they've put it out there themselves, even if Ryan Day came out and said 11-2 in a Rose Bowl is not good enough here. I'm trying really, really hard not to just full blow say anything short of a national championship would be a disaster. It is so hard to win in college football. Just dumb things happen. And when you have an exceptionally talented team, you can mitigate a lot of that silliness. But I really hope that people look at the schedule this year and the games we have here at home.
The schedule is fantastic for the 100th year.
It's going to be so much fun to watch this team play really high quality opponents at home and to feel like they got a pretty darn good chance to win every game. So I'm not telling people to temper their expectations. They're good enough to win the national title. I think 100%. They're going to do it. I really think this is going to be the year. But I don't want to get in the mentality of it's national championship or bust, because I just don't know how healthy that is for a program in its entirety. I mean, Ryan Day's 34-4 as a head coach. That's preposterous. That is,
we're spoiled. We're spoiled.
Ridiculous. Just enjoy it. And you know, I really hope people have the right mentality coming into this. I guess
just one last comment on the pressure topic. Like, if you're playing with no pressure, that means what you're playing for no longer matters.
Sure.
And probably if you're playing with no pressure, your team's probably not very good. So if you had to pick to play with pressure, you'd want to play with pressure all day long, because that means you still care about what you're doing. So, and at Ohio State, you're going to have pressure the second you walk in the door.
All right, you ready for this? This is my TED Talk for the day.
Yep.
I read this over the summer, and I thought this was really interesting. I've never considered it this way. There is no physiological difference in your body between being nervous and being excited. It's the same physiological response. The difference is in your head and how you perceive the situation.
Love that.
Yeah,
I didn't know we were getting this deep the day before.
Well, I
love that.
I didn't either. But the idea that, like, you know, I'm thinking back on what Jackson Smith-Njigba was saying about a week ago. Basically, like, you know, look, we embrace that. We want to know that we feel that way, because it means that the games are meaningful for us. Like, that means we should feel invested in this moment. We care so much that there's this adrenaline rush that you have to figure out a way to, like, quash a little bit so that you can focus. So yeah, you know, I don't know that I ever get that nervous over a golf shot, but that's right. Like, as soon as I read that, I was like, next time I'm over a tough shot, I've got like you're
going to be thinking about
an easy kick in birdie putt, but it looks like it's going to break a little more than I think. Like, no, I'm just excited. I'm not nervous. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting. And it sounds like, based on what we've heard from the guys, they haven't used those exact same words, but the concept is there, where they're embracing that challenge of, you know, hey, we don't feel extra pressure. We know we're good. We really care about this. We want to go execute it. And by the way, we know what it feels like when we don't. So, you know, here we are. So that's kind of where I stand on all of it. I think it's going to be a fun day. I do think Ohio State's going to win. I was
going to ask if you want to get into score predictions.
Time to get into score predictions. I can
go first, or you want to go first?
I have my prediction. I'll give it to you in a second. But I don't want to get misconstrued. I certainly think Ohio State can win by more than this. I really do. But I don't think the Buckeyes are going to win this game by the 28 or 35 points that I've read some other places. I actually think it's a pretty good line. So I don't think it's really going to be a game where Ohio State is necessarily sweating it out either. I say 38-20. I think it's, you know, a 17-point line, I guess, if you want to bet on it. You know, I would predict Ohio State to cover. It's going to be right around the over-under. I think the over-under was at 59 or 59.5. Yeah, so I guess I picked that.
Something like that,
yeah. You know, I just don't think Notre Dame is going to have enough of an answer defensively to slow down Ohio State. They've got too many weapons. I think the Buckeye offensive line is going to look better because they actually have guards playing guard and tackles playing tackle. But I do think Notre Dame's defensive line is going to make life a little challenging, and we're not going to see the Buckeyes just straight march down the field all day. And I also think Notre Dame is going to try to shorten the game and run the ball a little bit more to help Buckner get in a rhythm. You know, I guess I'm not predicting Ohio State to score a defensive touchdown. If they do, they could certainly eclipse the 40-point mark. You know, when I think back on the average scores that Ohio State's put out the last few years, you know, when you're averaging 40 plus per game and you have a few games where you know you're going to score 50 or 60, you're going to have some games where you're below 40. And I think Notre Dame's defense is probably good enough to keep Ohio State from having some crazy route. So I say Buckeyes 38-20.
Yeah, so Ohio State this decade versus ranked opponents at home is 14-3. And I think it goes to 15-3 tomorrow. I got it at 42-24, Ohio State, and really not ever close after halftime. So it's kind of a perfect storm for Ohio State to really show people what they got tomorrow. But at the same, it's Notre Dame's got a brand new quarterback. Yeah, he's played, but he hasn't started in an environment like this. You got a first-year head coach that feels no emotion coming back to his alma mater. So it just sets up right. Notre Dame has great players, don't get me wrong, but is this last year's Notre Dame team? No, it's not. Their front's still really good. They only graduated 6 sacks off of that team from last year, but they don't quite have the guys that they had last year. They still have Mayer, they still have Foskey, but they don't have the rest of the horses they had last year.
42-24 for Craig, and I said 38-20. We'll see how close we are. I think Notre Dame is a 9-win team for sure, and I think they're capable. I'm looking at their schedule now. They've got a couple of big games beyond the Ohio State game. They play a good BYU team. They play Clemson, and they play USC. They close the year at USC. I think those games are maybe a little bit more of a toss-up, especially as the season goes on and Buckner gets his feet underneath him. I think Notre Dame will win every other game on its schedule. I think they're going to lose to Ohio State, and I think they have a chance to win some combination of those other 3 games. And if they do, and if they finish 11-1 and have only a loss to the Buckeyes, they're going to be right there in the playoff conversation. Yeah. I'm not quite sure they're that good, but perhaps we'll see as the year goes along that they'd be better. But I just don't think this Notre Dame team is quite college football playoff caliber. Although I do think Buckner has a chance to be a better quarterback than Ian Book, which could help them maybe get over the hump. So
one last comment from me before we wrap up. As a fan, tomorrow let's all take a collective deep breath when the defense is on the field. If Notre Dame starts driving, it is not the end of the world. We have full faith in Jim Knowles figuring this thing out. So let's just be a little patient tomorrow. A lot of new things they're installing and seeing it come to life against another team.
Are you going to be patient if the defense lets Notre Dame go right down the field the first drive of the game?
We talked about it Tuesday. We want to see how they respond after they get kicked in the mouth this year, because last year the response was not
I am going to text you if Notre Dame – and by the way, Marcus Freeman said he generally likes to defer to the second half. So if the Buckeyes win the toss and Notre Dame gets the ball first and they go down the field and score and the stadium is groaning, I'm going to text you and be like, well, how excited are you right now?
The sky's going to be falling. Everybody enjoy tomorrow. These games don't come along often, so everybody have fun and be safe and enjoy the game.
Absolutely. Brandon, big thanks for the support, man. Thanks very much. And David, yeah, this is awesome. Would really appreciate everybody subscribing and hopping into our conversations. Again, we have posted these podcasts in the mornings each of the last few days after the fact, but the goal is to try to be live as often as we can, as long as our schedules allow for that. That's definitely our plan. So we have a boatload of coverage planned for you tomorrow. BuckeyesNow.com will be your home for all the written content you need. We're going to post lots of video stuff pregame and then immediately postgame. Obviously, we can't post stuff during the game because the TV broadcast rights are exclusive. That's kind of how that thing works. So we'll keep you updated with as much info as we can. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so you can follow along. If you're listening to this after the fact, know that you can join us live. And if you listen to us live and you missed something maybe early in the show, don't worry about it because it'll be archived on YouTube, and then we'll put it out in basically anywhere you like to listen to your favorite podcasts. For Craig Hyson, I'm Brendan Gulick. This is Buckeye Breakdown preview and prediction for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We're coming to Columbus. The 2022 season is finally here. Have fun, be safe, and go Bucks.
Go Bucks.